Hi there, Michael from Ritter's. I thought I'd give you a little bit of a peek at the mess I call my garden. Customers have said, you must have a huge garden. Well, you're going to find out. It's not huge. But it's very special, and I've got a lot of fun things in here. This thing, I'm going to show you. This is called a Cape fuchsia. It's a plant from South Africa. We sell these. We don't sell this particular variety. I might have to propagate it myself because it seems to have disappeared from commerce. It's called Passion, and the leaves are sort of a dark chocolate brown when they first emerge in the spring. And hummingbirds just love this. So it's a semi-hardy shrub, but very root-hardy perennial. And if it dies down to the ground, it will come back from the roots. And this has been here 10, 12 years, and it's made a nice little colony. And then this is something that we do sell at Ritter's. This is Miss Molly, the butterfly bush. This has been in the ground about 5 years now, 4 years. And every year I cut it down to about this high, and it still gets this high. So just about at the end of its bloom season. But it's done really well, although the sycamores are overshadowing it. This is Rudbeckia Goldstrum, probably the most popular Rudbeckia. It's colonized in here, but what I'm really excited about in this bed right now, this is the hardy plumbago, Ceratostigma plumbaginoides, and it's just getting going, and it's formed a ground cover in here. And look at this. Show me some dirt. Can you see some dirt? I can't see no dirt. This is the key to low maintenance gardening. Just cover the ground with plants. No place for weeds. And then here is a little patch of black mondo grass spreading nicely. And one of my pet plants, I'm always going on and on and on about the hardy fuchsias. This is Fuchsia magellanica aurea, the golden Magellan fuchsia. And another very hardy, I think maybe 6 or 7 years in the ground now. This plant, people turn their noses up at Oregon grape, and I really don't understand why, but this one is nothing like the regular Oregon grape. This is the Cascades Mahonia, Mahonia nervosa. And we have a few plants of this. They're always small, and we can't get really big ones. But this does so well in our climate, and it's much more refined than regular Oregon grape, and it doesn't run amok. So it turns a little purple in the winter, blooms early in the spring, the flowers are fragrant, has the blueberries. So I absolutely love this plant, and you should too. Over this way, this is a patch of phlox that is starting to thin out because my other pet plant, the bamboo, is starting to shade it. This is Phylostachys nuda, or nuda bamboo. We sell a similar species called Bisset, which looks very much like it, but I have to tell you a little secret if you don't tell anybody, but this has gotten away from me. But that's okay, I have a plan, But it's been in the ground about 15 years, and it's now 30 feet tall, which is nice because it greets me as I turn the corner coming home from work. It's right there, this big massive green during the winter when everything else isn't so much. We have some roses here. These are English roses. Unfortunately, David Austin has decided not to sell his roses to garden centers, but you have to order them from him. This is Sharifa Asma. Has a beautiful, beautiful, intense perfume. And this is Evelyn, and Evelyn is just absolutely magnificent. Smell. Can you smell that? Getting close. Can you smell that? Well, not that close. This is something that we sold last year. This is a Cestrum parkii, or Chilean jasmine, or willow leaf jasmine. The leaves smell like cheap peanut butter, but at night the flowers have an intense perfume. I planted this as an experiment to see if it would come back, last summer and planted it deep like we recommend for the hardy fuchsias, and it came back. I'm happy. I'm surprised actually, but in a good way. This is my favorite phlox. This is Blue Paradise. And it is absolutely gorgeous. Huge flowers compared to your typical phlox. A little leggy, that's okay. You know, give it a corset, something to grow up through, or let it do as I have here. It's just kind of growing through some shrubs and looks nice with Julia Child here, doesn't it? Julia Child, we have sold this. This is one of my favorite Floribunda roses. It has a lot of David Austin's rose blood in it because it's got that myrrh scent. This is her second round of flowers. She's tall. You can get upwards of 7 feet. And after the first flush, I whacked it back by about 2/3, and there she is again. Can't keep her down. This is part of my little plumeria collection. I'm very fond of it, but this is something kind of fun. Speaking of cheap peanut butter, this is Cleodendron. The leaves here, yeah, bad. I wouldn't spread it on toast. But the flowers have the most magnificent perfume. It looks a lot like a hydrangea, doesn't it? In fact, one of the common names is Mexican hydrangea. But there's a freshness. I can't describe it. It's sweet, it's fresh, almost like fabric softener, maybe. But it is spread. And I planted this years ago. I had it in a container, had no idea it was even remotely hardy. Would trek it back and forth between the garage and the garden. I decided to plant it somewhere underneath where that laurel is now. And it's spread, and it has spread, and it has spread. It's covering about 900 square feet. If you look, you see these leaves all over the place. I'm fine, it's cool, I love it. If you would like a piece of this to grow in a container, don't do what I did and plant it in the ground. You could overwinter it in the garage, but this is deer proof, and that fragrance is absolutely amazing. A pretty good performer for something native to Southeast Asia, don't you think? So let's go this way. This is another one of the hardy fuchsias. This is Cardinal, and it has huge flowers. I love that color. It's kind of a lax grower, but this is its first season for me. I'm sure it'll build up strength as time goes on. And it's been blooming now all summer. Red birds in a tree. Some people, I don't know if it's the same person keeps calling or if it's other people, lots of people. But this is red birds in a tree. And this is a native western perennial. And it's kind of a lax grower too. It's wandering through this really pretty rose. And then my Monet Weigela there. Elfin Thyme. This is one of the best of the creeping thymes. If you can't grow moss, then this is the best bet. Flowers sparingly. It's not sheets of color like some mosses or some creeping thymes are. And then sweet violets. My mom's favorite flower was the sweet violet. And years ago I was out here one spring and the violets were blooming all over what was at one time a much bigger lawn than this. This is the big lawn, by the way. It's about as big as a king-size bed. But it was full of violets, and a gentleman from a lawn care company came by and said, "Sir, I've noticed you have a problem with violets in your lawn." And I said, "No, I actually have a problem with lawn and my violets." So let's go this way. I like to make little pocket gardens, little surprise vignettes that are discovered as people walk through the garden, like, oh, look at this. Couple of western sword ferns here, more of that Cleodendron. And then Alcuba, this is Picturata, very happy in extremely deep shade. This is a Kryptomeria, or Japanese cedar, a variety called Sekan. We have this, really nice trees of this at the nursery. It would be a lot fuller, but this is also the favorite ladder for the raccoons to climb up the roof. And I know they've been here overnight because the little Buddha there will be knocked over. Sometimes I found him face first in the water, but usually he gets knocked off onto the back. So now we'll go to the backyard. This is the patio. This is where we sit, have dinner, read the paper, or actually read the phone because we don't get the paper anymore. But this is underneath a couple of ponderosa pine trees that came with the house. These are my fan palms. These are windmills, Trachycarpus fortunei. We sell this at Ritter's. Not these big, not this big, but we sell these at Ritter's. These are very hardy. This is the palm you see if you go to Portland or Seattle. And because they're so big, they are obligated to spend the winter outside here, which they do quite well, actually. I use incandescent miniature Christmas lights to keep the pots from freezing, because they'll handle a lot of cold if the roots don't freeze. Now last winter, they spent 2 weeks bundled up, tied the fronds up around some incandescent miniature Christmas lights through, wrapped with burlap, and then aluminized bubble wrap and plastic sheeting. And they hung out like that for 2 weeks. And they did fine. They're growing like crazy. They put on about 1 foot of trunk a year now. This one I've had about 20 years, and this one maybe about 15. And this was the size of the one that we have at Ritter's when I first planted it. So then lots of plants in pots here. Coleus do very well here. Oddly enough, the impatiens sometimes have trouble making flowers because it is kind of deeply shady in here. But this time of the year, the flowering comes back really, really quick. Now this is a bamboo. It's a clumping bamboo called muriale, Fargesia muriale. It's related to the rufa bamboo that we sell at the nursery. I'm hoping we'll be able to get this to sell because this is by far my favorite clumping bamboo. It is so much more graceful than the green panda or sunset glow rufa types. I know a source, but we have to see if we can make the logistics work. This actually came up as a seedling from the original clump of this that was planted here maybe close to 20 years ago, maybe 22 years ago. 24 years in this house, by the way, if you're wondering. That one flowered and died. The people that sold it to me told me that their patch was beginning to flower, so I expected it. But I had bamboo seedlings coming up all over the place. This is the one that survived. So I won't see this flower again for about 160 years. So I've got to take care of myself and eat well. This is the back garden. And we have Japanese Mahonia here. This has very spiny leaves. They almost feel like they're biting me. In fact, if I'm bending down to fill my water can, the spines on some of these things poke through my shirt and I feel like I'm being bit by a mosquito. This is Picturata or Alcuba. Again, I showed you this earlier. Very happy in this climate as long as it's given protection from the winter sun. And a little grotto like here, fountain in the background, also popular with the raccoons. If I can't hear it in the morning, I know they've splashed all the water out of it. And I keep it running all year, actually. The heat from the pump prevents the water from freezing until it gets down into the low 20s, and then it begins to ice over. We don't recommend you do that with your fountains, but I'm kind of lazy, and I like just to do that. See if it, anyway, never mind. This is the Magnolia. This is Bracken's Brown Beauty. And I talk to customers about this at work when they're looking at our evergreen magnolias. This is the one that I say is as tall as our building at work, because it is. That's at least 25 feet tall. And when it was first planted, it was about 6 feet tall. And now its trunk, and you can see how close it is to the house. There's no worries with planting magnolias close to foundations because their roots are like a carrot. They don't heave things, they just kind of mold around things. And that's probably 10 inches, as big as a pie plate maybe. So beautifully fragrant flowers. I did not get very many of them this year because the local squirrels have developed an appetite for them, and they ate almost all of them except for maybe 6. So I don't know what I'm going to do about the squirrels. This is a Portugal laurel. This is related to the English laurels. Similarly, it's evergreen. This grows into a tree. And this is one of the plants that I remember from March 26, 1976, when I first discovered my love for plants really, really, really deeply. I walked under these trees at Stanek's nursery up on the South Hill, and I marveled that there was something that was like a tree that had leaves that time of the year. So I think we have one of these left. We'll get some more in next spring. But it is a beautiful, beautiful evergreen, broadleaf evergreen tree. Birkwood Viburnum blooms in April.
God, that thing's huge.
The flower clusters are about the size of a tennis ball. This is mostly evergreen here. I'd say that's about 15 feet tall, more or less. The pergola is 8 feet tall. So, and this was the #1 favorite for the hummingbirds of everything in my garden this year. This is Kupfia honeybells. Remember this, hummingbirds don't love anything more than this. And then Clematis flammula, or Virgin's bower, over the top of the thing, just about done blooming. It smells like almonds and vanilla, like a custard. Blooms usually during the very hottest weather. And bench. Used to sit on it quite a bit. Now if I sit, I fall asleep, so I don't sit there anymore. And back here, it's another little garden. This is another Aucuba. I can't remember the name of this, and I've been trying to match images, but it's very slow growing compared to the other ones, only about that much a year. It's been here since at least 2011, because that's the earliest picture I have of it. And another picturette in the back there. If you have sharp vision, you'll see there's some brown spots on the leaves. Well, the sun was shining on it during the summertime when we had that 11 billion hot spell, and it didn't like it, nor did we. February Daphne is the plant with the red berries there. I have seedlings coming up here and there. If I'm lucky, I'll be able to dig some up and pot them up for sale, and maybe see if we can get some of those started from seed. Have had no luck finding a source of that plant for the nursery, and every year people ask for it. Sentimental favorite. My grandpa had it. He gave a piece of it to my mom. I remember jumping on it, jumping off the porch. She wasn't happy, but it survived. This is a cool iris. This is the stinking iris. Actually, there's a better one behind you. I'll show you. This is an evergreen. If you go to the coast, like Cannon Beach or places like that, you'll see this growing everywhere. It's escaped. And it seeds itself around. This is a volunteer. The flowers aren't remarkable, but these seed pods, when they open, the seeds are brilliant orange, and they last through the winter. And it's evergreen, likes dry shade or handles it well. And no sun, please. It does not like the sun. And then sweet box or sarcococa. And then Maidenhair spleenwort is that adorable little fern. That's native kind of around the world to this latitude. And it takes really dry conditions better than most other ferns. See, love that thing. That's a great plant. Great, great plant. Great Expectations is the Hosta here. And there's a limit to how much competition hostas can take. And Darth Vader, this Norway spruce here, is really, really, really changing the dynamic back here. Another Portuguese laurel. And the wisteria above us is a variety called Texas purple. And it's a very rare day in the summer that it doesn't have some flowers on it. There's some shining right there. The sun's catching them. So beautifully fragrant. Texas purple, sold as a Japanese wisteria, but it's really a Chinese. It twines counterclockwise. This is Another Mahonia japonica. These are the berries that it's set. This starts blooming in the winter. There's one at Spokane Community College that always starts blooming before October's done. This one waits until February. But the flowers have a wonderful lily of the valley perfume. Again, very pointy leaves, but doesn't run amok the way Oregon grape does. Doesn't look really good in small pots, which is why it's kind of a hard thing to sell in nurseries. But you see it in the garden, it's like, wonderful. This is another casualty to the spruce. This is actually planted in the ground. This is Trachycarpus wagnerianus. And I can stand here with the hose and water this thing 24/7 and the spruce will still drink it up. So its leaves are getting smaller and smaller. So I'll cut down the spruce before I dig this one out. But it's kind of a dwarf version of the windmill palms. And then if you look up there, you can see a couple of flowers on that rose colette. Beautiful climbing rose. And there's a little bit of wisteria wandering into the picture up there as well. They do that.
Got about 5 minutes of camera time left.
One more thing.
Oh God, okay, count me down again.
3, 2, 1. Now the air is full in this area of this wonderful, simple, sweet perfume. This is a clematis called Betty Corning and silvery little bells. I thought I lost this year. It was coming up early in the spring, as it does, and then we had that freeze and everything was killed, and I thought, dagnabbit. But then I happened to walk back here one day in May and it was scrambling up this rose again. The perfume is amazing and it carries, just fills this whole space. It's an American hybrid and I'm hoping that we'll be able to find the source of this for you for next spring. It's best used in, just as you see here, climbing up through this climbing rose. It's been blooming since July and will continue to flower all the way into November if the weather allows. And then you cut it to the ground. It's one of those kinds. One last plant, or two last plants I'm going to show you. This is the Himalayan Maidenhair fern. And this is a ground covering fern. And it will move very quickly if the soil is loose. It's evergreen to about 5 degrees below zero. Colder than that and it dies down to the ground. And it's absolutely gorgeous. Does really well in containers. You can use it as a ground cover in potted plants. Grows well as a house plant. Looks for all the world like something you'd find in a steamy jungle. But it's hardy. And this is Choicea Aztec Pearl. The Mexican orange, it's a shrub that's really common on the west side of the state. I planted this here maybe around 2010, just as a lark, and it has failed to die. I mean, it's been hardy down at least twice to -3. I might have even seen -9. It's evergreen, very aromatic foliage. The flowers look like citrus blossoms because it is related to the citrus. They have a sweet perfume, and it gives me another bonus cluster of flowers here and there in the fall. We might be bringing this in next spring if you'd like to give it a shot. If nothing else, you can grow it in a container and overwinter it in your garage. Deer resistant, the foliage has a powerful, almost eucalyptus-like aroma when you crush it. And, just an amazing plant. Tucked underneath the eave of the house, keeps the snow off of it. Gets a lot of afternoon sun here. I don't know if that helps it or hurts it, but Aztec Pearl, Mexican orange. Thanks you for visiting my garden.